welcome to the latest episode of our Transactional podcast, where today I'm joined by the wonderful Joe Lane from M Group, who's head of transactions down there. Joe, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi Rob, yes, my name's Joanne Lane and I'm the Group Head of Financial Shared Service for M Group Services. And within my team, I lead accounts payable, subcontract payable, sales ledger, banking, employee expenses and master data.
Perfect. Enough to keep you busy.
Definitely.
Perfect. And I suppose sort of for you then, if we start off in your own words, sort of what is transactional finance and why are you guys so key to the smooth running of a business?
I think transactional processing is absolutely critical to any business. Every business relies on accurate and timely recording of revenue and costs, and all of those flow through a transactional processing department. If that information is at any point incorrect, that means that the business decisions, the strategy of the company is under question because of that accuracy. Yeah,
definitely. I couldn't agree more. As well as with transactional finance, you keep all the money coming in and out of the business, don't you? And
absolutely.
If anything goes wrong at your end, then it's not going to run well for the business.
No, it's absolutely key to cash flow. Accurate records mean that you're billing your clients correctly, you're paying your suppliers correctly, and therefore that money keeps flowing as it should do, allowing the business to make strategic decisions, acquire, or whatever it else they want to do in terms of investment and growth.
Yeah, perfect. And I suppose for you, sort of personally, how did you get to becoming the role that you are now? How did your career start, and how did you get to where you are?
Mine's probably a little bit of a different story. I fell into finance completely. There was no plan whatsoever. I had no interest in finance. I started off in a data entry role within a payroll department. Had very little idea of what I was entering. It was purely data, no understanding of debits and credits. But quickly found that I liked it. I liked the office atmosphere and those kind of things. And a permanent role came up for an invoice discounting clerk. Didn't really understand what one of those was, but had built enough of a relationship in the temporary role to be given the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I took on an invoice discounting clerk role, which was far more complex than I think I had given it credit for. And I think it's probably fair to say that for a little while I wasn't very good at it. I would issue the invoice discounting cash statements every morning, and every evening I would get a lesson on what I'd done wrong for a little while. But with patience, I got there very quickly, and all of a sudden the penny dropped. And from that moment on, I've loved finance. The whole debits, credits, processing, procedures, standard operating really just kind of ticks the box for me, I suppose. So I started off as an invoice discounting clerk, and then over a number of years I moved around all the subledgers. So I've been a banking clerk, I've been an accounts payable clerk, I've been a sales ledger clerk, I've been a sales audit clerk. So I've worked my way around a lot of subledgers across many industries. And that's kind of where I cut my teeth. I did dabble for a couple of years in management accounts and business analysis. Found I didn't really enjoy it. I missed the buzz of transactional processing, and just that whole kind of environment of accuracy. Subledgers are very black and white. There's no kind of grey accounting in the subledgers. It is what it is, and that's what I enjoy. So I then took my first team leader role in accounts payable, and discovered that not only did I enjoy the subledgers, but I really enjoyed the opportunity to lead people. And that is where I started in terms of my leadership journey, and then slowly over many years moved organisations to take on more people, different subledgers, and to increase my knowledge over the years. But ultimately, I would say the most important part of my role as a head of transactional is leading people.
Yeah.
The sub-ledgers is all about people, and in many cases, big teams, lots of personalities, and you've got to enjoy that side of it. It is the most important thing you will do, and it's really a privilege.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. I mean, how many have you got in your team at the moment, if you'd like to say?
So I've got a team of 54 across all of my sub-ledgers, and then included in that as well, I've got a project management office where I have qualified accountants working on the more accounting side of the transactional processing, and then also reporting and business and analytics.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So plenty of people to try and keep happy and motivated.
Yeah, there's always, with 54 people and only 52 weeks in the year, there's always something going on.
Yeah, and I suppose for you or for other people that are watching this, what sort of your one bit of advice in sort of keeping that many people motivated and sort of on track to hitting targets?
God, I don't think there's one piece of advice. I think there's many. I think you have to enjoy leading people. It's really, really important. It is the number one thing that you will do in your career if you want to head up a shared service. If your people are happy, then your transactional areas will run more smoothly.
Yeah,
They'll be engaged. I think standard operating processes are absolutely critical in terms of running a smooth shared service. And I would say probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and it has been a learning curve, and it continues to be a learning curve, is to listen. And that is to listen with the intent of understanding and not just with the intent of replying, which I think, to be fair, I probably did throughout my 20s and 30s. It's taken a long time.
yeah,
And I'm
perfect.
still learning.
And I suppose in terms of a transactional role or a career in transactions, what sort of opportunities would you say are there for those who are ambitious? And is there any sort of extra training or qualifications people can go through in order to try and help take their career to the next step?
Yeah, I mean, you can join a transactional shared service in one of many disciplines across the shared service, and you may like or not like some of those, but it's worth taking the time to experience all of them. The more of those sub-ledgers that you experience and get under your belt, the more the puzzle starts to come together in terms of accounting, so that you are understanding and not just processing. And that is the difference really between staying at that lower level and being part of those processes, or lifting yourself up above it, because only when you fully understand it can you then start thinking about process improvements, how you can make things better, adopting technology and robotics. You do need to have an understanding, and that can come from a book in some elements, but there is nothing like on the job experience, living and breathing what happens on a day-to-day basis. Books are great, but they are purely happy path. Everything is wonderful, and that's not the reality of a shared service in terms of people being off sick, speed requirements, changes within the business, growth, acquisition, all of those kind of things. So experiencing as many sub-ledgers as possible would definitely be my advice. And don't be scared to go backwards to go forwards either. I have gone backwards in terms of a role from a team leader back to a clerk to effectively go into another sub-ledger and learn that part of it. And then in terms of formal qualifications, I think there are lots of things you can do. You have AAT, that will give you a fantastic grounding to accounting, and of course will exempt you from the first stages of CIMA and first stage of CIMA and ACCA. You could go down the apprenticeship route. There are a number of apprenticeships. We have a few people in my team doing accounts payable apprenticeships at the moment. Great opportunity, a lot of skills learned through that. And for those that just want to jump ahead, you could do ACCA and CIMA. And just because you've done ACCA and CIMA doesn't mean that you can't remain in the subledgers and go up the route of ahead of shared service. It doesn't have to be that you follow the pure accounting role.
Yeah, perfect. And I guess sort of for you, transactional finance, you sort of touched a little bit on it earlier. Why is it so important to not just the smooth running of a business, but I'm thinking also in terms of, I mean, you guys are speaking to other companies who owe you money, companies that you owe money to, and effectively keeping those relationships as strong as possible. And realistically, if you look at the AP route, they're paying your suppliers. If they pay on time and they treat them well, then there's a chance that you might get better terms next time it comes to negotiating.
Yeah, and it would be fair to say that in the hands of the subledgers, really, in some respects, is the reputation of your business.
Yeah.
Paying suppliers on time, building a good relationship with them, not just suppliers, but subcontractors and your employees in terms of paying expenses. Some shared service have the payroll as well within the financial shared service. We're slightly different. It sits within HR, but equally it's a shared service. So not only does the reputation outwards, but also the reputation inwards to your employees. It's absolutely critical to the business. And of course, how you behave and chase money and bring that money in from your clients builds those relationships.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose for you as well, if your AP clerks, for example, are paying invoices on time and things like that, do you then find, not necessarily just when it comes to renegotiating contracts, but I suppose even with your with the AR sort of credit control side of things, if you're acting in as much of a sort of human way as possible, does that make your day job smoother in terms of you have less problems? Because if there are any issues, they're typically resolved quicker because of the good working relationship between businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication is the key, and integrity in how you behave in a shared service centre. And of course, that then leaves people at a higher level or within your procurement and those kind of things, the freedom to negotiate better off the back of what's happening in the shared service.
Yeah, perfect. And I suppose for you at the moment, what are the biggest challenges facing transactional finance, or do you possibly see you having to face over the next few years, whether it be economic or upgrades and things like that?
I mean, I suppose for me personally, working at M Group, we are on the acquisition trail. That brings its own challenges because it's a forever changing landscape. And that means additional businesses will be coming into the shared service centre, which is very exciting. And you get better at it over time. So it's really important to make sure that your operating processes are really slick and that you're looking at them all the time. It's not a one-time only implement, walk away. It's got to be continuous improvement. We are far from perfect and we will never be perfect, but we will constantly be striving to get better. In terms of the economic outlook, yes, we're very lucky in the industry that we're in, and for the company that we work for, we're working with very large blue chip clients. So that brings us a sense of security, and M Group is in a very good place.
Good. Yeah, perfect. I mean, for us as well, we've definitely seen some businesses now looking at sort of longer payment terms as well and effectively trying to hold on to money that little bit longer. Have you guys sort of seen that yourselves with, say, clients that may owe you money looking to hold on till the last possible moment to pay?
I think so again, this is maybe where we're a more fortunate business. M Group is dealing with very large blue chip organisations where payments are contractual and they're already effectively in place. So we haven't had so much of that. But likewise, we have the same on our side going out to our suppliers.
Yeah, perfect. And I suppose that kind of leads on. So where do you see sort of the future of transactions going over the next sort of 5 to 10 years? Is it with potentially more AI and automation? Do clerks become more like business partners and trying to add more value to internal procurement teams and doing more stakeholder management with suppliers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Robotics, absolutely, that needs to be at the foundation of a shared service centre. And again, as I said, those standard operating procedures lend themselves to robotics. AI, I think it's in its infancy. I do absolutely think it's something we need to embrace and we need to look at, but I'm not quite sure we're seeing anything yet
Yeah,
out on the market that we can look at. I think there are things that people are looking at to build in the future, and I will be very, very interested. Anything that can take away the real kind of humdrum of a shared service centre and allow people to lift themselves up and you to be able to lift them up and add value to the business is a positive in my mind, not a negative.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think from my perspective, from what I've seen, we are definitely seeing more automation coming in
Yeah,
on a lot of, I mean, I suppose kind of where you start on the sort of data entry side of things, and sort of having the computers taking over that part of it.
yeah,
So then the human interaction is then fairly minimal. It's more if there isn't a PO number or something like that, for example, which
yeah.
is then when the humans would get involved. So some invoices now go through without ever needing human contact, really, don't they?
Absolutely, we have that. So you're basically dealing with by exception
Yeah,
when something doesn't work.
yeah,
And of course, as we move into AI, there are possibilities where even that can, to a certain degree, be dealt with by
yeah.
something other than a person in the shared service centre. Again, leaving them to do the more intelligent jobs, I suppose, and the more value add.
Yeah, and I suppose with that, would you see that as in terms of shared service centres when that sort of sweet spot's hit between robotics and automation and sort of human interaction? Do you see the actual number of people needed to run a shared service centre effectively reduces, or will it just be more the people's roles change slightly into the more value added type
I
position?
think, for me, I think it will be that their roles change into the more value add, and I would also say that for me, I think you'll see financial shared services move slightly more from a transactional, maybe to a more business services model, and actually be able to take more into
Yeah.
the shared service centre, and therefore increasing the opportunities within
Okay.
a shared service.
Good. Perfect. And I suppose that for you, if you're sort of interviewing somebody who's just about to join your team, sort of at the very junior end, or even looking back on your career, I know you've mentioned some really good bits of advice there, but what sort of the one main bit of advice you would give to somebody who's first starting off in transactional finance?
For me, I instill the same in my managers when we're recruiting at that lowest level, that kind of specialist role that we're looking for. For me, it is all around attitude. They naturally come with no experience. You know,
Yeah,
you can't have experience at that age and that low level, but it's all about attitude and having a can do, a want to, a will do attitude.
yeah,
I can teach anybody about finance. My managers and the seniors in the team can teach anybody about processes and procedures and develop them in that way. But what you can't give somebody is an attitude and a personality. That is the most important thing to me.
yeah. I couldn't agree more with that. We definitely see it sometimes when we, for example, we may have a role which is looking for somebody of say a certain seniority
Yeah,
within AP, for example, where then it will be someone who's slightly more junior, who's got the best attitude and outlook on work that gets
yeah,
it, because like you say, people are willing to give you a chance if
yeah,
if you show sort of your passion and a positive attitude towards it.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Definitely. And I suppose for you, the kind of one final thing to sort of finish is if we look back over the last few years, sort of pre and post COVID, if and how has transactional finance changed in the ways that you work or even how you interact with suppliers and clients?
I think it has changed considerably, actually. I mean, certainly from my perspective, hybrid working wasn't something that was ever discussed.
Yeah,
All of my shared service were desk bound. There were no laptops or anything like that. Now desktops are a thing of the past.
yeah,
Telephones on desks are a thing of the past. Everything is now on the laptop. which means that the team can enjoy hybrid working. I encourage hybrid working. It needs to be within boundaries, and we're very lucky in that a lot of our processes are using cloud-based automation, and therefore as leaders, and as my managers are leaders, they have all the statistics that they need, and that isn't about catching people out. It's about being able to monitor output and make sure that if people are struggling working from home or in a different environment, that we're able to support them. Sometimes that means them coming in more often, sometimes it doesn't, but being able to give my team flexibility around childcare when they work. I mean, it's really not that important to me overall as to when an invoice gets processed. For me, it's important that the invoice gets processed in a timely manner for payment. So we're able to offer flexibility, and I think that's been really important to some of our team members, but also really important in terms of some of the recruitment that we've done. I know that we have, because they've told me, that we have been successful with some candidates, not because of the salary, not because of the role, but ultimately because of that flexibility and that trust that we're prepared to offer.
Yeah, definitely, and that's one of the biggest things that we've seen, sort of coming out the other side of COVID, is the flexibility is at the top of people's agenda. You know, pre-COVID, if you offered a day a week from home, people would have ripped your arm off for it. You know, whereas as now it is looking for sort of 2 or 3 days a week at home, and that's just the way that the world's changed. And like you said, with the amount of cloud-based systems there are now, realistically, does it matter if an invoice is being processed between a normal 9 to 5, or if someone works a little bit in the morning, goes on the school one and processes the invoice at 7, 8 o'clock at night, as long as it's within the agreed timescales? Is it the end of the world? No.
No, absolutely. And you're able to, you know, as a leadership team, you're able to monitor and manage that, as long as I think there is an element, and it's very important that you start to upskill yourselves and your leadership team on remote management. It is different. And it is important that you have those touch points, and people just don't become a name that you never see.
Yeah, perfect. And I suppose for you, we may have other sort of shared service managers watching this. What's the one bit of advice, or your one key learning over the last few years that you would pass on to others in similar positions?
Standardization, that for me is the key. So many times over my career, not standardizing, not getting those operating procedures in, and therefore not training people properly. It's really important that those things are done from the absolute outset, I think, and that's across a shared service. You need to get the business operating in the right way, and you need to be operating in the right way, and that needs to be standardized across everything.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, really appreciate your time today, Jo. It's been great having this conversation, and you've been able to share your knowledge with those that are watching. I'm sure it's added lots of value to them and been really interesting. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right, no problem. Well, thank you very much.